You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again. It is Monday. It is 2 p.m. Central. It is 3 p.m. Eastern. Did you miss us? Yeah. No live shows last week, but a lot of on-demand content hitting the network for you, including a crypto spotlight last week. We didn't leave you hanging. Now we're back live from the Chi-Town studio and raring to go. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network that continues to grow. European Market Brief coming at you tomorrow. Of course, one of our new shows, as well as, of course, the Hot Options Report hitting you every day after the close. Now, yet another new show on top of course, the Futures Rundown. So 3 new shows coming at you just in the last few months out there. So a lot of great stuff. You want to check it all out, make sure, if you're listening to this, make sure you subscribe to the full network. And, of course, if you want to go above and beyond, you want to win, let's say, a pro trading crate, just like our pro member, Mr. Unlimited, did on the last show on the option block, then get your name in the hat for the August pro trading crate. Only place to do that, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to get your name in the hat. As we find out who's joining us, maybe he wants to put his name in the hat. We shall find out. None other than a good pal, Mr. Greg Magadini, the Director of Derivatives over there at Amber Data. Mr. Greg, welcome back to the show, sir. It's been a while. How you doing?
Doing well. What a market. It's very exciting right now.
Yeah, you always join us with some fun stuff. You know, I go away for a week and things go crazy. So a lot of fun stuff to seek our teeth into. All right, without further ado, I see your request. Yeah, we'll get to all that fun stuff in a second. I see you there in the chat. But it's time to kick things off with the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, let's get down to business. It is time for the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down all the action in the world's leading digital asset. Yep, we're talking about the big dog, good old BTC, looking a little bit bigger since the last time we were live on the Crypto Rundown 2 weeks ago. It was a little bit north of 117, 117,689 to be precise on our last show. Not quite 2,000 handles north of that since then, but pretty darn close. Kicking off the show today, 119,584. Don't like that level. Just wait 5 minutes. You'll see a lot more there. So nearly 2,000 handles to the upside, about 1,900, of course. But a lot going on in the interim. Let's start there. Mr. Greg, what's been catching your eye in the world of Bitcoin since the last time we chatted, sir?
Yeah, so I think there's quite a few things. So I continue to view Bitcoin as the digital gold / risk on asset mix. That's kind of how I view this asset. And so we got a little bit of a relative outperformance last week with the the Fed nomination with the surprise vacancy until January 31st. This guy's a dollar bear. And he thinks that U.S. Treasury purchases are actually not good by foreigners, and he wants to essentially not kill the dollar, but make the dollar go down, which is great for Bitcoin, great for gold. So we saw that, but the bigger story is really the equity, tech stocks, and the Web3 plays kind of taking off right now. So one of the interesting things in Bitcoin is we can't seem to exceed implied vol. So implied vol has this premium to it versus realized vol. We continue to see that. I think that's going to keep going forward. If I look at 90 days out, for example, I see 30 realized and about 42, 41 implied. So there's a big differential out there. So I expect that to keep going. We have a pretty steep contango. It's been in steep contango since the past 90 days, so it's kind of a sticky environment. And I think there's better plays for massive upside, but you can finance that potentially with some of this Bitcoin volatility.
A lot of financing going on in the crypto space right now. We're getting requests about those Web 3.0 names you just talked about. We'll get to all that fun in a second, listeners. First, let's sink our teeth into a little bit of the old BTC. I'm not sure if you know this, Greg, but you crunched some vol numbers over there and some skew numbers over there at Amber Data. So let's check those out. See what's lighting up the tape over there in Bitcoin. As Greg was saying, a little bit of a differential between realized versus implied right now. That 7-day implied, by the way, coming down since our last show. We were at exactly a 40 on the weekly implied, which is already starting to get decently low for all things Bitcoin. But of course, things can always go lower. It is that time of year, listeners, where vol traditionally is kind of taken to the woodshed. And coming into the start of the show today, that 7-day vol in Bitcoin, a little bit north of a 33, right about a 33.4 out there. So coming in nearly 7 points since our last show. 30-day vol, similar story, not quite as stark. 37.5 on our last show, 34 3/4 today. So starting to get fairly low. Now that said, vol can always remain low for a while. Sometimes it is the smart thing, the wise move to sell vol when it's cheap. Sounds counterintuitive, but it can be the case. But that said, make sure the juice is worth the squeeze when you're getting down to a sub 35 30-day vol in all things Bitcoin. Going out a little further to where the hodlers hang out, 180-day vol listeners was at a 46 on the show. Last time, 44 2/3 today. So again, vol eroding. Let's get out to the skew as well, Mr. Greg. The 7-day skew on our last show, listeners, was pretty much exactly flat, and it's pretty much that case again right now. Negative 0.25 to be precise, which in my book is pretty much flat. Going out 30 days, it was a -2 on our last show, so slightly, ever so modestly bearish on our last show. That is pretty much gone, and we're back to flat on the monthly skew as well, positive 0.25 to be precise there. And going all the way out to where the hodlers hang out in 6-month skew, positive 1.4 on our last show, all the way up to nearly a positive 2 right now, positive 1.9. Mr. Greg, what is catching your eye out there in the world of Bitcoin skew, sir?
Yeah, so one of the things when I look at Deribit options, for example, so you're looking at the 180-day call skew being bid to the calls by a couple points. And let's not forget that on Deribit, these are futures options. So the other kind of component to think about is the futures contango. So if I go out about 90 days to 180 days, the futures basis is trading almost 9% over spot. So if you look at the 180-day options and you're going to sell that, well, there's kind of 3 components working in your favor for the covered call seller. One is realized vol is dismal compared to implied vol. Second is the futures basis is going to kind of roll down to spot as time goes by. third is that the skew is pricing a little bit of the upside to the calls. And actually, there's a fourth component is that we have this strong contango term structure. So the implied volatility is going to roll down as well as we get closer towards maturity. So it's something to keep in mind if you are wanting to buy Bitcoin upside via calls. There's a lot of factors going against your favor. The carry is extremely high. No surprise when the market is relatively bullish, the carry is going to be pretty expensive for those essentially asymmetrical bets. Now, for U.S. players who are not trading on Deribit, how can you capture this? I think there's those really interesting instruments. There's BitO, which has that big dividend. It has that futures contango. It has that call skew. It has that term structure. All those things are bound into it. What it doesn't have is great liquidity. So you got to keep that in mind. And then there's BitX, which is even better, which has that fifth component of the 2x drag over time. So I've said this a million times, but for anyone who's new to hearing this, 2x drag means every time that we reset on a daily performance, the drops are going to come from a higher denominator. So 2% from a higher denominator is not the same thing as 2% going back up from a 0.98 denominator. So there's going to be a tracking error over time. So there's a lot of reasons to essentially, sell some of the Bitcoin upside and use that premium to deploy somewhere else where things are moving a lot better.
Let's talk about some of those other products. You mentioned BitO. We don't really talk about it even that much on the show anymore, Greg. The options volume is kind of withered and died, which I think everyone kind of expected once IBIT stole all of the oxygen in the room. Let's go out to IBIT right now. At a 68 when we kicked off the show, listeners, up about exactly $1 from our last show. Putting up some numbers, which is good because the ADV was moving in the wrong direction. Still impressive, though. 618,000 contracts. That's VIX numbers at that point. That's down 14,000 from our last show. Today, blowing that away, 759,000 contracts on the tape already, and there's still a better part of an hour to go in the session, so it's probably going to hit 800,000 contracts out there today in IBIT. So a hot day in IBIT. 30-day vol in IBIT kind of lines up to what we were talking about, 30-day vol on Deribit and everywhere else. I had about a 36, down about 2 points from where it was this time on our last show. Let's get out to what's lighting it up out there, because we said it is a spicy day out there in IBIT options. And the hot option out there today are the AUG 70s. So going the way of the dodo this week, going up 55,000 times. Looks like for an average price of around 39.40 cents. So AUG 70s, 2 points to go by the end of the week. Can we get there, listeners? Looks like a lot of flow going in on that strike. Also the 69. So if the 70s are a little bit of a bridge too far for you, about 38,000 of the 69s going up today. Those are opening. So worth noting, new paper on the 69. 70s, I guess, could be a bit of a roll down as well. We'll have to dig in and see. And then right behind it, we have 33,000 of the 67. So those are now in the money calls. So an interesting smattering of upside going up this week in IBIT, Mr. Greg. Anything catching your eye in the world of the now pretty much number one, Bitcoin options play, at least for the folks on the security side?
Yeah, I mean, IBIT's the way to do it for traders on the security side. There's good liquidity. You see often, maybe 2 cent wide spreads. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. So that's a great instrument. But I do want to touch back on the BitO real quick, because just for anyone who's tracking BitO, so BitO is built on CME futures. But the interesting aspect is that a lot of the realized P&L on the underlying futures are paid out as dividends. So in December 2024, when Bitcoin was around 90K, call it 90 to 100, kind of that range, BitO was at $33. And today we're at 120K and BitO's at $21. That's because there's about $10 of dividends paid out, or $11 of dividends paid out. So that asset is just never going to rally. So if you want to sell the covered call, you sell it on BitO. And then you can buy the IBIT against it. That's just a nice, cleaner product. And then some of the aspects that I just mentioned, that contango is going to come out of the BitO, the dividend's going to come out of the BitO. So those are great ways to essentially hedge a long IBIT buy-hold position in a way that won't get you called out of your shares necessarily. So that's kind of one of the plays that I'm looking at that I like. But again, the liquidity, you got to work those options. The liquidity is not amazing.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, we said for a while that that dividend in BitO is both attractive and off-putting to a lot of people, right? Because it's so big, it's distortive. And you're right, if you're not capturing it, you're missing the entire reason to be in that product pretty much. So it is challenging. I don't mind that iBit versus BitO play out there. What did our chat says? The BitO dividend is wild. Yeah, it is. I think wild is a good term. Not many products out there, major trading products, paying north of 50% dividend yield. I haven't checked what it is right now, but it's a wild number out there. Speaking of wild numbers, Mr. Greg, whenever you're on, we have to check in with your favorite holding. I think you said this is your number one core holding. 98% of your assets are in this product, which is, of course, MSTU, trading a whopping $8 right now. Listeners, this is, of course, for all of you out there who think MSTR is boring, not sexy enough for you, MSTU giving you a levered bite at the MSTR apple, averaging 46,000 contracts a day. That's coming in a little bit. It was putting up nearly 100,000 for a while there, but still decent paper for a levered product that I have only jokingly dismissed in the past as solely for crypto degenerates. 36,000 going up today, so a decently active day, all things considered. The hot option out there in MSTU today, nearly 5,000 of the AUG9, so they got a buck to go by the end of the week. Those traded for looks like around 11, 12 cents, listeners, so I don't know. It's a big move in MSTU, but then again, it could be there by the end of the show. This is a wild product. Greg, what's catching your eye in the product that I do believe is 99% of your core holdings?
I have to say, I love MSTU. It's such an interesting instrument.
How did I know?
It's not a buy-hold instrument. It's a trade the options around instrument. So here's, I talked about this in my newsletter a couple weeks back, but I think this is a really interesting thesis. So we talked about all the reasons why selling a covered call or selling a call on Bitcoin itself is interesting. Got the contango, you got the in the term structure and contango in the vol term structure. You have the skew, all that good stuff. Now, MSTR is that levered play on Bitcoin. So it sort of trades at a higher vol right out of the gate. But MSTR trades at a premium to net asset valuation. Well, that premium has been consistently grinding down. And then if you want to kind of have 2 times that exposure, you can sell the call on MSTU. So you have that 2x tracking error plus the decay of the net asset value premium, plus all the reasons why vol is expensive in Bitcoin itself. So now you have all these things compounded together. Now, and then, ask yourself, well, what do I do with that premium? Do I just want to sit on a premium? I think you got to hedge it out. And this is where I think there's an interesting type of play. We had the earnings in Coinbase come out a couple weeks ago. Dismal earnings. The reason why the earnings were not so good or the market sent the stock back down is that Coinbase typically makes a lot of its money from retail trading. And what we saw was that the retail trading underperformed a lot. Now, what's the reason for that? Maybe everyone's trading on iBit, ETH, all the ETFs instead of on Coinbase. That could be a reason. But if that is the reason, altcoin season should be very good for Coinbase because that's the place where you go buy your altcoins. So if we're in the early innings of altcoin season where altcoins finally catch up to Bitcoin, Bitcoin loses some Bitcoin dominance, that'll be a great reason for Coinbase to rally. And you could kind of finance Coinbase call spreads by selling MSTU calls, something like that. And then you have all those fall factors working in your favor. And then last but not least, I know I'm kind of talking a lot here, but last but not least, the Coinbase realized volatility, that's one of the few assets that the realized vol pays vol buyers. So you're selling something where vol buyers never win on a product where buyers never win, and you buy this cheap Coinbase volatility, and you're playing the rotation. So to me, there's a lot of things there that seem really nice.
I like the notion of altcoin season. I could get behind that. Summer is usually a quiet time. Maybe we just need to coin that. Summer is altcoin season in the crypto market, Greg. What do you think? I mean, look at the performance. Certainly altcoin have been the place to be of late, while Bitcoin's kind of languished a little bit. So interesting stuff. Speaking of altcoin season, it's that time on the show, listeners. It is time to explore the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, let's find out. Is it altcoin season? Let's find out here in the old altcoin universe, listeners. Let's kick it off as we like to do, exploring a little bit of market cap. On our last live show a couple of weeks ago, it cost you a little bit north of 28 billion, about 28 and a quarter billion to break into the top 10. That got you to our old pal Cardano. Things have sold off a little bit since then, and we've seen a little bit of a shakeup once again. We got Tron and Cardano just landing belly blows on each other week after week, battling for that number 10 spot. This week it is Cardano staying at the number 10 spot with just a little bit shy of 28 billion, 27.9 billion worth of market cap. Number 9, it's our old pal Tron, 32.6 billion. Number 8 is Doge, 34.6 billion. Number 7, USD Coin, 65.4 billion. Number 6, our old pal Solana, 95.8 billion. Number 5, BNB, 112.3 billion. Number 4, yes, still number 4, so Bill will be excited. Number 4 is Tether, 164.5. Why? Because number 3 is his wife's beloved XRP, 189 and a quarter billion. Number 2, it's ETH, 519. Look at that, north of half a trillion in market cap. All the ETH heads getting a little bit of extra pump, a little bit of excitement out there, a little bit of beat of their hearts over the past few weeks. Good to see ETH north of the 4K level, back when it was languishing not too long ago, listeners. What, shy of 1,500? It was a rough time. So interesting stuff out there. And number 1, you know what it is, good old BTC, a 2.3, almost 2.4 trillion worth of market cap. Let's get out there right now to number 2 on the market cap charts. I'm guessing, given its recent outperformance, maybe number 1 in a lot of your hearts again. Certainly in some of these Web3 names we're going to talk about, is number 1 for them. It's our old pal ETH. ETH looking spicy to kick off the show. Like we said, right around a 4,300 when we kicked off the show. It puts it up about 530 handles from the last time we checked in on ETH, when it was a little bit north of the 3,700 level. So a lot going on in ETH land. Greg, you go away from the show for a little bit, you come back, and ETH is the sexy darling again. Wild times. You and I were talking not too long ago on the show, just a few months ago. It seemed like it was time to kind of do the old yeller on ETH, take it out to the woodshed and put a bullet in it. It was done. And now here we are back north of 4,000. Greg, what do you make of this wild resurgence in ETH?
Yeah, I remember we chatted back in March, and it was definitely dismal days for ETH. But yes, the sentiment has turned. It's finally turned. There's a lot of room to run for Ethereum. There's a few reasons why I say that. One is everyone's been sidelined from ETH, so there's a lot of potential buyers, so to speak. The other thing is that ETH is more of a Web3 tech stock, pure play, risk on asset. And if we look at risk on assets, I mean, things are going wild. If I just do some crazy back of the envelope math, credit markets plus M2 is about 3 or 4 times bigger than all of the equity markets combined, globally speaking. Then if I just take one equity out of it, NVIDIA, granted it's the biggest equity, but NVIDIA is worth about 4.5 trillion, and all of crypto combined is worth about 4 trillion. So there's 18,000 tokens out there, cryptos and level L1 chains, and that's only worth 4 trillion. So it's not like the NVIDIA chart looks bearish right now. It looks like that thing's going to keep going. So in my mind, there's a lot of room to run for crypto as a whole. Now, if we look at the pent-up demand for Ethereum, one of the things that we see is that the relative price in Bitcoin terms, while sort of the middle of the range is call it 0.06 to 0.07% of a Bitcoin. Today, we're about 3.5% of a Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin just stays where it is and ETH kind of goes back to its median relative price, that puts ETH at about $8,000. Now, I think the target that everyone's looking at is going to be the $5,000 mark. That's new all-time highs for Ethereum. I think that's almost a given. Once we go past the all-time highs, then let's get back to the relative price of ETH in Bitcoin terms. That brings us to about 7.5 to 8,000. All that makes a lot of sense to me. Now, if we look at the vol market, vol is about 75. If we go back a couple years, I mean, we have Q4 2020 ETH vol 30 days out hit basically 200%. Then we have, a few vol events to the downside that put ETH vol around 200%. And as of late, for the past, call it 18 months or call it 2 years, ETH vol has kind of been unable to get past 100%. If we have this kind of repricing higher on the back of ETF flows, securities, or liquid staking not being considered securities, ETFs paying out yields, staking yields to holders, there's a lot of reason for people to kind of all get back into ETH all at once. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have, major upside to all-time highs and through all-time highs relatively quickly. The historical context for the vol justifies that, and the historical relative pricing for ETH justifies that, and the positioning going into this event has been very, very light. So all those things put together, I think there's a lot of upside in ETH, and it's kind of interesting to see, what's going to happen here.
You getting our chat excited? A lot of ETH heads listening, Mr. Greg. That's music to their ears, 5,000 and beyond. I think Greg said, if I can read between the lines, the flippening is imminent. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, I think is what you said out there. So look forward to that, all you ETH bulls out there, listeners. Let's go out. He's broke down some of the vol. Let's get a little bit deeper. Remember, you folks can run all these numbers for yourselves. Amberdata.io. You literally have no excuse. That GUI is free for everybody out there now. 7-day vol, again, looking kind of spicy, 68 on our show last week, 70. And now, again, as Greg pointed out, we've seen it get much higher. So for ETH, that actually isn't that wild. But comparing to some of these other major crypto assets we're talking about, notably Bitcoin, it is roughly 2x that. So intriguing out there. 30-day vol, 66.5 on our last show, 68.75. 6-month vol, same level, 66, which is kind of interesting, and 68.25 today. Skew-wise, not surprising that we're seeing the ETH bulls out there, but not maybe as aggressive as you might think. We're at probably pretty much flat on our last show when it came to the weekly vol, or I should say weekly skew in ETH. That's swung to about a positive 2.1 right now. If we go out to the 30-day skew, it's actually come in a little bit, positive 2.15 on our last show. Positive 1 right now. Remember, skew numbers are going to wildly vary intraday as we're moving up and down as well. So it's kind of just a snapshot we're taking here. And then going all the way out to where the hodlers hang out on the 6-month skew, we're looking at a positive 5 on our last show, which is pretty optimistic, but given the move, it was definitely merited. A positive 3.25 right now. Mr. Greg, anything catching your eye in the realm of ETH skew these days, sir?
Yeah, well, one of the things that's really interesting is, obviously the skew's a lot more elevated in ETH to the call side right now versus Bitcoin. Very justified, but we've seen skew go a lot higher. So if this is really a repricing towards more median relative vol, the skew is going to be it's going to be worth the purchase. Now, one of the other things that's very interesting for ETH is really looking at the underlying futures contango. So right now the futures basis is about the same as Bitcoin, but if we look at year to date, the perpetual funding for ETH is basically almost zero, whereas for Bitcoin is almost 400 basis points. And that the reason for that differential is because the market was so bearish ETH that people were either selling the future perpetuals or just not buying them. So the net funding ended up being almost nothing. Whereas Bitcoin didn't have that same type of flow. Bitcoin was just bullish all year. And so the funding is very positive. So I think what we're seeing right now is we're seeing the funding starting to move lockstep with ETH. We see the basis being essentially lockstep with Bitcoin, ETH and Bitcoin being lockstep, both in the futures funding and the futures basis. And we're seeing massive growth in the open interest for futures and perpetuals on ETH. So there's wide participation, and we're seeing people willing to pay that funding cost. So all those things put together, to me, solidify the narrative that the market is ready to buy ETH, and they're willing to pay the funding premium to do that.
Speaking of people willing to buy ETH, Mr. Greg, and doing a lot of funding around it, we got a lot of requests in our chat to talk about a couple of names that are very active in that, including good old B Meaner, a.k.a. Bitmine Immersion Technologies, Inc., ticker symbol BMNR. just running away with the options volume today, Mr. Greg, breaking into our top 10. This is the first time we've ever talked about it, and it's already breaking into the top 10. So this is a very hot name. If you're not familiar with this name, listeners, we talked about a lot of Bitcoin treasury names. This is one of the ETH treasury names. In fact, as of right now, it is the largest ETH treasury name on the planet. So that alone accounts for some of this action. But just an absolutely wild stock chart, listeners. Go check it out. BMNR is the ticker, trading right around $61 right now. A huge move. Is trading 4.25 a little over a month ago. A shot all the way up on this ETH move, and it looks like some influx of outside capital from people like Peter Thiel and others, all the way up to, looks like it got an intraday high of 161. Down 100 handles from that, trading 61 right now, but just an absolutely wild name. Its ADV is already up to 105,000 contracts a day. Doing way more than that today, listeners, 445,000. So it definitely seems like it's going to close in the top 10 today, listeners. So quite the debut in the top 10 for good old BMNR. If you're wondering what is the vol in this name, it's a juicy 164. So just a very active name. And the hot option out there today, these are not in the weeklies. These are expiring on August 22nd. So next week, listeners, it's the 70 calls going up 37,000 times today for an average price of $7.04, Mr. Greg. Looks like if they're bought those, they're wearing it on those right now. My goodness, $61. But this thing, if it retraces to 161, they'll be laughing all the way to the bank. But Greg, what are your thoughts on this just overwhelmingly hot name right now? And also just the influx of these ETH treasury names. We've been hearing a lot about the Bitcoin treasury. Seems like it's ETH treasury's turn in the spotlight, sir.
Yeah, very interesting. I know nothing about this stock, but I do. Here's where it would fit in my base case scenario. I think base case scenario being long ETH here makes a lot of sense. Target number one, $5,000. I think ETH volatility and ETH gamma is worth the squeeze right now. It's worth paying for it. ETH vol is not that high historically speaking, and if we get that real repricing higher, it's gonna be worth it. Now, if BMNR is a levered play through a treasury on ETH, well, I could just definitely see those 70 calls pay out. I definitely wouldn't sell him. I don't know. I haven't done enough knowledge or digging to know if I'd buy them, but I definitely wouldn't sell them. So I definitely think if vol is cheap, gamma's cheap, ETH is cheap, then these 70 calls are probably worth it.
That could be. I mean, $7 sounds pretty rich, but in the world we're living in right now, Mr. Greg, going out nearly 2 weeks is an eternity. Everyone's living day to day in a lot of these products. So you're buying 2 weeks worth of duration, which I guess in the before times is like buying 2 years worth of duration for $7. But this is a wild name, listeners. I don't think we've heard the last of BMNR. Yeah, this one just came on my radar this morning today as well, Greg. So kind of taking everyone by surprise out there, which is kind of fun. I'll cheat. I'll let one more question come in. Usually we save these for the crypto questions, but you folks, these are kind of tied together. A lot of people asking about Circle as well. Greg, last time you were on, you and I were chatting. This was kind of right after the hot Circle IPO, and this name had quite the wild ride. Since then, we have other people come on, including our buddy Mr. Bill. When we showed him the Circle put wing, he literally fell out of his chair and started selling puts almost instantly. I admit I copped to selling a few myself. Those strikes look wild right now. 190, 195. The stock 162 right now, down about 15 handles from our last show. Putting up decent paper, 129,000 contracts today, but that's below its ADV of nearly 200,000 contracts, which in and of itself is down about 85,000 from our last show. So obviously the premiums have come in a little bit, the vol has come in a little bit, so maybe Circle not quite as attractive on the put right side and just the premium harvesting side as it was back just a few weeks ago. Still, the vol is still pretty spicy out there compared to a lot of names they're talking about. 30-day vol is at an 85 out there, so it's spicy. It's even more than ETH, and of course it's higher than what we're talking about in Bitcoin in the mid 30s, but coming in from what it was, let's say a month ago or so out there. That said, the hot option out there today, nearly 10,000 of the August pars, the August 200s. Why is everyone asking about Circle today, Greg? Well, they have their first earnings call. Is it today or tomorrow before the bell? Either way, This is your last shot, Mr. Greg, if you want to get something on before Circle's earnings. So have you been watching this drama? Did you get lured to the dark side of selling some of those puts when they were just ridiculous? 30 handle, 40 handle out of the money puts for $4, $5, $6, $8, $10. I mean, it was wild times out there, Mr. Greg. Have you been doing any trading out there? And what are your thoughts on how Circle is lining up right now, sir?
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of Circle. I think Circle is going to be a very interesting long-term play. I think it's one of those things. How can you even price the future of essentially USD on chain and the adoption in Web3 and the Web2 world? I think there's so much upside and so many unknown unknowns that the upside is asymmetric. That's just my personal opinion. And yes, I got into the shares by selling a bunch of puts, and I sold a bunch of long-term puts, and basically short a bunch of Vega. As Circle came back down below 200, the vol crush essentially delta hedged me, and then once the prices fell enough, I bought back my puts and used the proceeds to buy the shares. So it's really a good way to not. You don't want to FOMO and buy at the top. So this is a great way to get some exposure. And then when the prices come back, then you can close out those puts for a small loss and convert them back into shares. Now you got great prices at the shares. So that's how I've been playing it. I still have a few short puts outstanding, but at this point I'm mostly long shares. And my plan is to hold them for a very long time. This is a very interesting bet to me. $40 billion market cap seems cheap considering where XRP is, where ETH is, where some of the other blockchains or less promising coins have their market caps. So just from that, comp analysis, I think Circle's got some upside for sure. Very interesting to see how earnings will play out. So Circle's been giving up a lot of its price gains as interest rates begin to be forecasted into rate cuts, because obviously Circle is investing its USD reserves in about 28-day T-bill paper. Well, if we cut down the short end of the rates through a couple cuts in September and maybe another one this year, that affects the earnings for Circle. But that's just today's sort of avenue of earnings potential. I'm very curious to see on its call tomorrow, what else are they thinking about? What are some other avenues of business and adoption and future projections? And so we'll see how that plays out, but it's going to be very, very interesting. Vol is pumping hard into the close today because we get earnings before market open tomorrow.
Greg liking himself a little upside here in Circle. Some of our chat, I know they were debating which puts they want to sell now out there in Circle. As we keep on rolling, listeners, let's explore the rest of the altcoin universe a little bit. Then we'll see what else is burning a hole in Greg's wallet. Solana down a little bit from our last show, but right around 184.5 on our last show. 177.69 today, so down about 684 from our last show. XRP actually managing to gain a little bit. 313 on our last show, 319, up a whopping 6 cents nonetheless. Bill's wife will be happy. Dogecoin pretty much unched, about 23 cents last show, 23 cents today. Litecoin 109 and about a third on our last show, 125.57 today, up about 16.2 handles. So a good little run for Litecoin. Cardano going the other way, but not a ton. Moving a little bit. It was about 80 cents on our last show and down about 79 cents. So not a huge move in Cardano. Polkadot, $4 on our last show, 402 to be precise. 392 this week, so down about a dime. And everyone's favorite, Greg's other large holding, Shiba Inu, a million zeros, 1351 on our last show. This week, it has the temerity to go down, a million zeros, 1318. Well, Greg, we talked about a lot of different products today, a lot of different underlyings, a lot of different altcoin. That said, before we roll on out of the altcoin universe and the show for this week, anything else catching your eye or lighting up your wallet these days you want to share with the folks, sir?
So I think, keep in mind there's a couple other crypto-related equities that are going to IPO soon. We have Gemini, we have Kraken, we have Bullish, so 3 exchanges. Someone was just asking me about those plays. One of the things that I really liked about the Circle IPO is that Circle, in my mind, is sort of a game changer. Gemini, Kraken, Bullish, those are kind of pure exchange plays. So you have really good comparables through Coinbase and even traditional exchanges. So I would say let's not get too excited about those, but it'll be interesting to look at them. And then I do think, in terms of where is realized paying implied buyers, Coinbase is the name. So I think, whether you're long or you're short, it's nice to keep an eye on the realized vol of Coinbase because there is enough juice to reward vol buyers. So that's something worth looking at.
Gemini, haven't heard that name in a while since they kind of got out of the a lot of the future side of the business. Hasn't been as sexy for us, but interesting to see more names diving into the IPO front. That music, Greg, means unfortunately we've come to the end of another fun sojourn through the world of crypto. Man, so much going on. BMNR, IBIT, Bitcoin, ETH, Greg's beloved Shiba Inu. I mean, so many things lighting up the tape. MSTU. A lot of big names on the show this week. But before we go, Mr. Greg, if folks are intrigued by all this stuff we're talking about and they want to sink their teeth into maybe a little vol, maybe a little skew, maybe a little futures basis, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah, you can check out all our charts and analytics over at pro.amberdata.io. And then you could check out the weekly review of the vol landscape in crypto and crypto-related equities at amberDataDerivatives.substack.com.
There you go. Check him out. Make sure you're checking out his newsletter, too. A lot of great stuff in there. A lot of great nuggets in between his appearances here on the old show. That's going to do it for us on the Crypto Rundown. Not going to do it for us on the network, though. The latest addition to the network coming at you in a little under an hour out there after the closing bell. We break down all the hot options that are lighting up the tape. Is BMNR going to make it? I think, spoiler alert, it probably is. So stay tuned for that. The hot options report coming at you wherever you find your favorite podcast programs. A lot of folks like it on the old YouTubes, wherever else you like to get it. Audible, we don't judge out there. Wherever you get your finer programs. Good old hot options report waiting there for you. Tomorrow, coming back at you, one of our newer additions to the network, going across the pond to the world of European derivatives at the European Market Brief. Then, of course, back on Wednesday for our usual doubleheader of the Futures Rundown as well as Options Bootcamp. Thursday this week in Futures Options. And, of course, the Option Block. Friday, Vol Views. And for all of our pro friends, we come back for a little bit of options, oddities, fun before we're back again next Monday. Another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.